Bang ding ding, trademark. He come out 6'7" tall. Bang ding ding, one is star. Bang dong ding dong ding dong ding dong ding dong ding dong ding. This is a perfect day.
Woke up to the sound of the garbage truck again. Upstairs neighbor's toilet's leaking on my head. And cars broke down, I missed the bus, there runs at 10. I had a feeling this was a day to stay in bed. I finally left my pad right under Jumbo's cloud roof. A police officer pulled out his gun and said, I said, sir, you got the wrong guy. I guess it's just a perfect day. It's just a perfect day. Na, 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 na,
Hey guys, welcome back to another great episode of Eggs. On today's episode, we have Jay Massey. He's the CEO and founder of Cashflow Diary. Cashflow Diary is a training and development brand for building short-term rental entrepreneurs. Before Cashflow Diary, Jay raised capital and invested in traditional real estate, single-family homes, note brokering, holding cell phone towers, and commercial real estate. Eventually, he built his real estate investing training program to share what he learned over the years. And with his real-world experience, he's training people like us on how to invest in real estate. So welcome, Jay, to the Egg Show.
Thank you for having me. I am glad to be here. Just please tell me at some point we get to talk about the Egg Show, like the name. That's my only request. Outside of that, ask whatever you want.
Sure. Ryan, do you want to handle that one?
Yeah, of course. So basically it goes like this. We talk about people's processes a lot of times. So we talk about sort of where they started, where they are now, and where they're headed. And over the course of anybody's journey, right, there's a lot of little teachable moments, learning moments, things they've picked up along the way, these little eggs that they can leave behind and share with people that are these little bite-sized chunks of information that can then be easily, distributed. So that's sort of where it came from, this idea of collecting all the eggs.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll do our best not to kill the golden goose while we're at it.
That is great. Well, yeah. So Jay, to kick this thing off, let's talk a little bit about your background, where you got started, where you're at, and where we're going.
So, I will say this, the background, there's nothing in my background that's going to be like, oh yeah, it makes total sense. That's why you do real estate. Because there's nothing back there that says that this is what we would get the privilege of doing today. And I say that to also say that there's a number of people that are probably listening, wondering, hoping, wishing you're like, I want to get into the real estate game. And I guess if anything, I just want to say that your story is not over. Maybe it's time for a new chapter. Here's what I mean. A few years ago, my wife, when she's pregnant, she has a condition known as hyperemesis. What that simply means is that she can't eat or drink when pregnant, which is kind of a problem.
It's problematic.
Right? That stressed me out. So I went to go play volleyball. While playing volleyball, I jumped and landed on a guy's head and punctured my lung, which then meant I could not walk and talk simultaneously without fainting. I share that with you because it's important that you understand that when I say things like we didn't have any money, it wasn't like we were going to work in the conventional of what most people mean when they say we didn't have any money, or because in the past I've worked with, professional sports players and whatnot. And sometimes when they say, yeah, I don't have any money, they mean I'm down to my last 2 million and I don't really know what I'm going to do. And I'm not saying that. I'm saying zero would have been a step up. I'm saying, I'm saying if I didn't do something, we were literally at every day 24 hours from starving. So it's really important that you get that, because that's what started the process of us selling our personal possessions on eBay, because I didn't know what else to do. There was like, what do you do? If I can't walk and talk, she can't eat or drink, she's in the hospital, and I'm stressed out wondering if she's about to die. That's really what's going on. how do you focus and plan anyone's financial future? Because that's what I at the time I was a financial planner, an independent financial planner, and it just didn't work. I can't exactly say, "Hey, come on over to the hospital and we'll plan your financial future." That wasn't the plan, and I was presented with a choice: either stay by her bedside or go to work and leave her. So I chose to stay by the bedside. We started selling the personal possessions on eBay, and just it wasn't enough. So we started squatting in bank-owned property because that's what we had to do. And we were making decisions: electricity or food. And around that time, a friend says, "Why don't you come be a real estate investor?" Now, you got to understand, my credit score is 398. I legit have no dollars. He's inviting us to lunch, and I hope you pay for lunch, because I don't know how that's going to happen otherwise, is what's going through my head. And here he is talking about real estate investing. One of the interesting things about being human, often when we're presented with an opportunity, what we do is we come up with all the reasons it won't work, why we don't, or how we're not qualified, and what we don't know, and the resource we don't have. And for whatever reason, this was one of just like the one time I didn't do that. And I just said, instead of coming up with my list of things of why it wouldn't work, I just told them, if you want that to happen, you're going to have to show me how to do this with literally no money, as in you're paying for lunch. And he said, okay. So over time, I began to learn the skills, the techniques, and it turns out that the very first real estate strategy I did was known as wholesaling. And would you believe it? It involved buying things at a discount, selling them at a discount really fast. The very same thing I was doing on eBay. I had no idea. And all I did was switch. I was still doing physically the same thing. Yet when I did it with a house, it would be 72 hours or so, and we would earn between $2,000 and $26,000 each time. And our life began to change really, really quickly, because in my family tree, there wasn't at the time a household that had earned six figures, let alone one individual. That was a new thing, So imagine the first 6 months of the year and before all of this tragedy, and then the last 6 months, you literally knocked down six figures for the first time ever in your entire family tree, So we ended up doing around 200 transactions that way, and have migrated from there because right after that, I found out what taxes really meant.
Right.
And so I made some adjustments and started what I called our house collecting phase. And I say collecting because that's just what it kind of felt like. It wasn't really so much as like, "Ooh, I don't have one of those, so let's go and buy that one too." And that's kind of how it went down, because I didn't want to pay those taxes like that ever again. And we ended up with about 450 doors when it's all said and done. Cell phone towers, as you mentioned, commercial real estate, apartment buildings, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And from there, I got bored, and I wanted more business local to home, because all of that was back east. I live in California, and my younger kids thought Dad was a YouTube star. And I'm like, that's not right. So I wanted them to see what Dad did. And by this time, I had taught enough individuals how to replicate what we were doing. One of them came to me and just simply asked, "Hey, have you ever considered?" Then they said, "Have you ever considered Airbnb?" And I was like, "What's that?" And anyway, that turned into, show me the numbers. And if the numbers make sense, I will, I'll look at it. And it's the only time, because I've had the privilege of speaking on a lot of stages with a lot of people whose names you would recognize. And I'm offered a lot of things, but it's one of the only times I've ever said, yeah, I'm going to go do that, because that has better numbers than what I'm doing now. And it'll allow me to provide jobs here locally, and my kids can be involved. There were so many stackable ands on that. I was like, this is exactly what I was looking for. And then the only change that we've made since is, when I built the original portfolio, or whatever you want to call it, it was mostly about me trying to prove that I could do something and go out there. The difference is now I want to bring more people with us, because what I learned from doing short-term rentals, it was the fastest I'd grown anything to 7 figures. And it was like, wow, that happened really quickly, because it took us about 6 months. And I'm like, that's not normal. And it started out as a test. Was it just me? Or was there something unique to the business model that made it accessible to more people so that they could do it too? And then over the last, what was it, 3.5, 4 years now, that's what we've now proven. It's just a business model that, yes, still involves real estate. Yes, involves a path to owning real estate long term, but it's just more accessible. And so now, that's why I get up, because there are people out there, some of you that are watching right now. I know things don't feel good. I know exactly what that's like. I remember vividly that, how we do dream boards and all this other stuff. One of the goals that I had on there, like, and under like be consistent, was simply get out of bed. Like, that was a thing on my to-do list, because I was not feeling so hot like a husband and a father when your kids are staring at you like, what are we going to eat? And you don't know. Not because you can't cook, but because there's no food. And you have no way to procure any, and you don't know. It's one of the worst feelings on the planet. Yeah. And knowing that there are people like that, I just want to make sure that they hear that there's still a way. It's not.
I think that's an amazing message. And I mean, really, heartbreaking story, but it sounds like it ended up well. And I
got nothing to complain about. In fact, it's a gift. It's now a competitive advantage. That's a whole nother story, though.
Well, and I just love that turn, right? Because there are a lot of people that might go through a situation like that and have just this attitude, poor me, pity me, blah, 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 and not look so positively back at it in retrospect, that this is a learning thing that now I can teach others. So really cool story. I love that. So for the person, because I think a lot of people maybe are hesitant to get into real estate for reasons of, I must need a lot of money to get into that. Can you maybe talk a little bit about sort of those first few properties as you started moving into doing this work? I assume it took a little while to build before you actually had a nest egg that you could work from.
Got it. This is what I meant by a gift. Some people believe because they have the credit score, because they have the capital, therefore they are ready to do real estate. And others just the opposite. Here's what I know. Neither of them are ready. They're just not, because it's not even about your resources per se, because every real estate investor, every business owner, every entrepreneur, nearly every person runs out of their own resources. And what you must learn to do is access the resources of other people. I was given the gift earlier. That's what happened. I got accelerated as if I was already 6, 7, 8 years in, because that's around the time when people who have their own resources really wake up to the fact that, man, I can't save any more money fast enough to buy any more houses or something of that nature. And I just started from that point and had to make it work. So it was never a luxury. I never had the luxury of fear. I never had the luxury of doubt. I never had the luxury of, okay, I'll get to it tomorrow. Those things were removed from me because of the situation. Therefore, make it work, which is exactly what I did. That very first transaction was 100% comedy, my friends. And
I would like to sit back and be the fly on the wall just listening to the conversation.
It's comedy, because I'll try to give you an example. This is how it went down. I'm hanging around real estate investors, and they say that there's this strategy out there where you can just take over an existing mortgage, and it's called subject to. Some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. Others of you not so much. But in fact, I'll tell you an example of how you can do one of these today. So they said that you can just take over the mortgage, and I'm like, okay, so if I take over the mortgage, does that mean I don't have to worry about credit? They're like, yeah, no, you don't have to worry about credit. I'm like, well, that sounds like a good thing for me right now. Then right after that, I was like, okay, well then what about the closing costs and all this other stuff? They're like, yeah, that's where it is. You have to find a way to pay for or have the money to pay for, some of the closing costs or repairs, this, that, and the other. Okay, cool. And then I just kept asking questions. So if I got that handled, what's left? Well, you've got to find a tenant and blah, blah, blah. I was like, is there anyone who can help me with that? And they're like, that's a property manager. I was like, got it. So if I hear you correctly, what you're saying is if I find someone, get them to say yes, I can make their mortgage payment for them, then negotiate to figure out how much money they want or how much money I need to give them to fix whatever the problem is. And I can then go get a property manager. You're saying I can have a property. They're like, yes. And I said, okay, be right back. So then that's all I did. Now, mind you, I didn't ask any other questions. All right. I just moved. So I went to a networking event and I developed a script and I started saying it. And then the lady said, yeah, that's me. And I was like, cool. So we talked. She said, yes. I was like, cool. You're the one I've been looking for. Then I go back to the people and I say, okay, cool. She said, yes. Now what do I do? And they're looking at me like, what do you mean? You had a seller say yes? Yes. And then did you get it under contract? No, you didn't tell me to get it under contract. Well, so what do I do? You need to get a contract. Okay, cool. Where do I get a contract from? And then they gave me one. I'm like, great. Now, mind you, I took it and went back to her. And then I said, then I put it in front of her. She's like, what am I supposed to do with that? I'm like, I don't know. And then I went back to them and I said, okay, great. What do we do with this piece of paper? They're like, put your name on it. Tell me where, because I don't know anything. You got to understand, in the back of my head was, if I get this done, we eat. All of those details were irrelevant. I was focused on the goal, eating. That's it. And it went like that all the way down to the point, and I used to, because this was also a funny phone call, because it tripped the escrow officer out. There have been times where the escrow officer called me to check up to see if I was okay. And I was like, why? Why would I not be okay? She's like, yeah, we've had your checks sitting here for a while. And we were just wondering, are you going to come by and pick them up?
Because you didn't know to go
I
get
didn't
them.
know I had to go pick them up. You got to understand. I didn't know that.
Oh, man. That's crazy.
But this is my point. I didn't need to know it. I needed to know the immediate next step. That's it. Period. Anytime you're learning something new, that is all you really need to know is the immediate next step. There's a reason that GPS doesn't tell you the entire map verbally from the beginning. They tell you the next step because that's all that matters right then. And unfortunately, we get distracted and honestly, it's just various forms of fear. Fear, it manifests itself and disguises itself many different ways. And when we're afraid, then that's when we go, I could go to that meeting, but I need to read this one more time. I need to make sure. And, before I even talk to them, I want to know what escrow officer I'm going to understand. Do you understand? I didn't know what escrow was because they said open escrow. And I'm thinking it was something physical. I'm like, how do you do that? Like, where's escrow?
Where's this escrow that I
open? That I'm supposed to open. And then they said, okay, now you have to close it.
I don't even know how I opened it.
Right. You understand? So but I was comfortable, and I've learned to stay comfortable with just knowing the next step. And that has allowed us to do, that's why we've done so many different types of transactions, by the way, is because I just needed the next step. I know where I'm headed. This is where I'm going. And you're telling me if I get to that spot, my family eats. Yes? Great. What's the next step? Cool. I'll be right back. And then
okay. So you eventually built this up to 34 units, 46 bedrooms.
Well, when our long-term real estate was 450 doors, right now we have 34 short-term rentals is what you're referring to. Yes.
Okay.
Two different things.
Did you get into the short-term game because you had the assets already in play, or is there a way to get into the short-term game like the Airbnb style business without having the doors?
Okay. You are running the risk of getting me really excited right now. Because this is what I know. You can have the same amount of assets I had and get started right now with the short-term rentals. And that's why I'm so freaking excited, is because the barrier to entry is below the floor. It's just a matter of being willing to do the work, really willing to do the work. And if you can do that, you have the physical ability to, it works. Because see, here's the difference. And this is what I've learned. When you own a large portfolio, you spend a lot of time juggling the mortgage payment versus cash flow, which usually means, do I fix up the property or do I take money out of the business? You're making that decision. And those of you with property right now, you're nodding your head yes, because this is a decision you're making all the time. And I didn't like that. I didn't like thinking in order for me to make money, I have to provide a subpar product. That wasn't good. I don't like that. And then that's kind of the situation until the mortgage gets paid off. Once the mortgage is paid off, then you got different choices. So here's what happens. Just change how that property is used, right? And you can increase the income to eliminate the negative part. It's a great place to build wealth, horrible place to build income. Real estate in general is a great place to build wealth, especially traditional, but it's a horrible place to build income. So the only thing here's what I'm saying. We all have limited time, limited resources, limited money, limited everything, limited knowledge, limited expertise. And when you go to deploy your assets, you need to make sure that whatever asset you are deploying is going to produce the character and type of return that you need, that is going to give you, in essence, the highest return on investment. And I can prove mathematically, we have proven with all kinds of people all across the globe now, that you will end up owning more property if you start with short-term rentals first, as opposed to jumping straight in to buying a property and then using that property as a short-term rental. You start leasing other people's property first. You learn to run that. You grow that. And then you take the cash flow from the growth of then you have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, whatever, how many ever units. And then you take that excess cash and deploy it into now buying real estate. And then the real estate you just bought, you use it the same way you did over here when you first got started. And to get a lease, especially because this is a business strategy, has nothing to do with your personal credit. And what you're now missing are the FF&E, furniture, fixtures, and equipment, and basically some first month deposit or whatever you and your landlord are negotiating in terms of the rent, which sit in the range of a credit card for most individuals.
Okay, so so I can get my head around the business model.
No
you're approaching a landlord and you're saying, I want to lease your apartment, your area. You set up the lease through the business, and then you go and you Airbnb it out, and that covers your lease, and you're hoping to make more in that month span than what the lease is, and that's your profits on the building. Is that pretty much it in a nutshell?
Pretty much it. Yeah, I would make some language changes, because one of the things that's still that because it's so new, one of the things that is happening right now is people are using the word Airbnb as a verb. And it's actually not, because Airbnb, that'd be like saying I'm going to Amazon my shampoo. That doesn't sound right. But yet Airbnb and Amazon are the same. They're both marketplaces where buyers and sellers meet. Instead of a physical product, like in Amazon's case, it's a service, i.e. a place to stay. And that's really the biggest difference in the language, some of the languaging that you were saying. But yeah, for the most part, you got it right in concept. And what I am saying, when executed properly, and this is where the benefit of running a very large portfolio and housing thousands of people come in, because it's like, how can you run it efficiently enough so that you can literally have an operational profit in your first 30 days that you're like, wow, this is like working. And that's what we have refined as a system that helps people to do exactly that, to where I just need you to get one. Because once you got one, we can help you get the second, third, fourth, fifth, 10th. I think we have one student over 100 now. It's crazy. And
what kind of profit margins are we looking at? Like, what's an average?
In a percentage, I tell people to estimate anywhere between 20 to 30% of net profit. For those of you who can't relate to that particular number as a percentage, I tell you to estimate around $800 per month per bedroom.
Okay. So when you come into a market and you're trying to get into this kind of the short-term rentals, what are the defining factors on if you want to move forward with the property or not? And how do you determine what market you should be in?
Got it. How much time do we have today?
Right.
Okay. So let me do this. I'm assuming that because the way you're asking that question suggests to me that you have a little bit of real estate experience. Is that right?
Actually, no. I've never bought a piece of property in my life.
Have you ever lived in a piece of property?
I have. I've had a couple. Yeah.
So you have some real estate experience.
Yes. Okay. True.
Okay, got it. And
So,
you've signed a lease before.
Well, and I was going to say, in the spirit of full transparency, too, Mike is interested in the subject. He may not have bought anything.
Yeah.
But he's definitely
that's
done
fine.
He's done some reading. So
Yeah,
he may be able to
that's
speak
what I
better than
meant. Because I'm starting to hear language that suggests he's read somebody's book or something, and I can hear it. So I'm just like, okay, got it. And this is probably going to be the biggest challenge for any of you who have some real estate background, is to understand that the property is. I mean, it's a factor, but it's almost irrelevant. Here's why.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because again, all I'm saying, hey, I'm just saying, this is what makes it a predictable system. All right. What I'm about to tell you, this is part of what makes it very predictable. And landlords are making this mistake all the time, but that's another story for another day. It's not about the property. It's about the experience at the property. That's what the person is purchasing. They, whether you have vaulted ceilings or not is 100% irrelevant to them, unless it's a part of the experience. So because it's a part of the experience at the property, I'm going to go in an extreme for a moment. Okay. Let's pretend that for whatever reason, you're one of those individuals who wants to see a crocodile up close and maybe wrestle a gator or two. I know for a fact right now, and somewhere in the middle of swampland, Florida, there's Bob. And Bob lives on one of those cabins with stilts, right? Just like you're imagining in your head. And he's got an airboat. And he's named all the crocodiles, in fact, and he will gladly take you on a tour. And he's got a little cabin right next to his that you can stay at and be a part of the experience of going and talking to the alligators. And he'll charge you just $200 per night per person. And there's somebody right now who knows somebody who would be like, yes, that sounds like fun. Let's go. It's not me. Okay. But it has nothing to do with the piece of real estate. It's the experience that you create at the real estate, which means you need to understand who it is that you want to serve. You need to know that ahead of time. And this is what we spend a lot of time on this one piece alone, because people want to skip this step, but it's the most important in order to eliminate. The problem is there's too many choices. So we have to eliminate them by narrowing in on a person. Now, when I say a person, I mean more than just the reason why they're traveling. For example, let me give you on the other side. There are individuals who are also looking for an experience because this event is supposed to be once in a lifetime, and it's what they do. And they want to travel to a particular location and bring all their friends, and they're going to have a destination wedding. And you know what's interesting? If you have the right house, possibly with a insane backyard or a ranch or maybe near the beach, suddenly the destination wedding is happening at your short-term rental. In fact, I'll go one more for you. Have you ever seen a movie?
Yeah, of course.
A few of them.
And has the movie ever had an interior scene? inside an apartment or a house.
Sure.
That's a short-term rental. My point here is that it's not about the real estate in and of itself. It's the experience at the real estate. And you can customize an experience once you know who it is that you are trying to attract and serve. So when you ask me, what about a studio? Does it work? The answer is yes, but it depends on who are you serving. Because if you say to me, I want families with small kids, probably not, because they may have too many children to fit inside of a studio. So you might want to at least have a 1-bedroom, probably a 2, in order to make that work.
So, but for example, if you're trying to cater to business travelers or something who just need a studio for a night or two, and they're choosing this as an alternate to a hotel room, for example.
Boom. Now you gotcha.
You've got a market there that you can serve. And because you understand the needs of that customer, you can tailor your properties to suit them.
And that's exactly it. That is the answer. Right now, most people, I call them hobbyists, they're confusing the fact that they're earning money with, they know what they're doing. Because right now, that's the state of the market. You don't have to be good right now. You just have to be present. That's it. You just be present. And you're going to trip over cash, and a lot of it at the moment. Over time, as the marketplace matures, you're going to have to be good. You're going to have to know who you serve. Just like the Ritz-Carlton and Motel 6 and Marriott.
Different clientele altogether.
Who they're, what's that?
Different clientele altogether. Motel
Correct.
6 and the Marriott
but they're still
are two
providing
different.
a place to stay.
Yeah.
There's still a bed, right? It's still a place to stay, but the experience at each of those is different. And you pay differently for them because you have a different expectation for them. They've laid out the path. It's just not been possible or as probable as it is today for you and I. And the advent of technology, what's happening is they just got a little upset that we're, beginning to encroach on an area that they previously had exclusive access to. And here's the funny thing. If you were Mr. Marriott, you would be doing the exact same thing because you would protect your territory. So I don't fault them necessarily for doing that. All I want to say is, look, there's a way for every one of you who is listening to my voice. If you have the capacity to hear this, you can make it happen. And then what ends up happening is, because now hear what I said, I'm just going to use the number $800 per bedroom. Think about that for a second. Now think about how much your monthly income is. If I said $800 per bedroom, realize that for most people, they need like 6, and they've just replaced their job. Ta-da! And 6 is nothing, guys, in terms of amount of time that you have to invest in order to actually make them run. And that's without systems. Once you add systems, you ain't got nothing to do but go get more units. And that's what we end up doing.
When you talk systems, what kind of systems are you talking about? Because that to me is the answer to this problem that I was forming in my head. Is like, now you've got 30 properties and you've got to manage bookings. You got to get them out. You got to get them cleaned. You got to do all these different things that short-term rentals come with. How do you create the system to operate itself? Like, what's the
answer to your question, I'll be general, is to develop an extreme, intense sense of generosity. Here's what I mean. In order for you to accomplish your goal, you have to be willing to take on the responsibility of providing jobs for other people.
Sure.
I never cleaned any of our units. One, you don't want anything I've cleaned. Okay. 2, someone else is willing to do that job. We are the entrepreneur. Our job is to organize resources and put them into productive capacity, not deliver the service. That's what we do. We organize the resources and put them into productive capacity, preferably at a profit. And what we do is find the people who are willing to do the other pieces of that system. The system delivers the service. So the reason I can sit here and just look at you guys and do podcasts all day is because the system is delivering the service. What does that mean? The system is attracting the new buyer. The system is talking to the new buyer back and forth. Yes, we're using machine learning and AI, but but it's also supported by actual physical humans there as well. Because that's one of the things I know about us humans is that we're all impatient. So we developed a system whereby we can respond 24/7 in less than 7 minutes or less, 24/7, multiple languages. That's how we do it. Okay, that's number one. But once the conversion happens and you've now decided, because we're answering your questions, and a lot of those questions are being actually answered by a computer because you guys ask the same questions over and over again. So it's easy to train a computer to recognize, oh, this is the parking question, So it's really easy to do that. And then once the conversion happens, then it's a process. We got to make sure that at this time, you got to get you this information, and then get you this information, and get you this information in this order relative to the number of people that are staying, where they're coming from, blah, 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 blah.
So
and it's very systematic. It's very systematic. Go ahead.
I was going to ask, I was listening to one of your podcasts earlier. Love the intro and the production, by the way. Really well done.
Thank you.
You were talking about a calculator that you guys provide. Figures that all out. So I'm assuming that you're providing tools for people like me that want to get into this.
Of course, I have to.
The calculator, the machine learning stuff. Is that something that like I could subscribe to and be a part of?
Yeah. But basically what we do is two things. And this is the fun part of what I get to do. Here's what I mean by that. There are a number of tools that are out there that I call expert tools. Okay. So take a camera, for example. There are many kinds of cameras and you get that idea. And there's some really, really expensive ones. You could go buy an expensive camera today, but just because you have that expensive camera, that doesn't mean you know how to use it or produce an image with it, etc. So that therefore means even though you have an expert tool, you also have to be taught and trained on how to use the expert tool expertly. And that's where we come in. Is we're constantly evaluating tools, by the way, because that's just necessary for us to continue to iterate and run our own business. But we're also teaching you how to use the same expert tools that we use to go out there and to deliver service. And that's really that's the entire thing in a nutshell. Imagine being able to apprentice with, a master blacksmith, and they work with you day one. And as their, techniques change and get updated, they update you with yours so that everybody pops out a version of the same master blacksmith, and y'all just keep going out there and doing your thing together. That's really what we do, for people. And we accelerate the process, especially at the beginning, because there's a lot of quote unquote catching up you got to do. But at some point, many they get it to the point to where they can begin to contribute back. And I love it when that happens, because then those who have already been are now helping. And it's just become this community of individuals. And as the laws change and, things happen, we just got each other's back to make sure that we help each other protect, the rights to do our business.
Interesting. So, Brian, did you want to?
Oh, yeah. I was just going to say, so one of the things that I think is so cool about your story is, I guess, you were in a bit of a pickle where you were, sort of forced into having to learn this stuff. And, as a way to basically survive. So maybe you had some motivations that others might not. But for the people
Correct.
who are saying, I'm broke, I'm destitute, maybe 10% better than you were doing, but are looking to get into something like this. One of the things I think is so interesting is how quick and how willing you were to jump into something, how willing you were to fail, and how willing you were to keep going. And I think that this is one of the things that people run into where they have trouble is, they're afraid of failure in the first place. So that might keep them from going. Then if they do fail, assuming they've jumped that hurdle, they then stop and don't proceed. Right. And then, and so I wondered if you could maybe, or if you've put any thought to a version of your story that might be relatable for somebody who wants to do these things. They're maybe not in a life or death situation like you were describing, but they still want to get into this game. How do you help people deal with fear and failing and being okay with it?
Okay, so I just want everybody to know we didn't plan this, but chapter 2 of my well, because I've been asked this so many times, like literally so many times, because people will come up to me after I'm on stage, this, that, and the other, and go, okay, Jay, look, it's amazing what you did, but we're not that bad, and I don't even ever want to get anywhere near it. But I still don't, I need the motivation. I need the, what's going on? Can you help me? And I had to put a lot of thought to that because I'm like, yeah, what is going on? And here's what's going on. You're comfortable. You don't have to. And because you don't have to, you, well, don't. Here's an example. Both of you. What happens on April 15th?
I don't want to talk about it.
What's that?
I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah. I understand. You don't want to talk about it, but you know what it is, don't you? I don't even have to tell you. You're like, oh my God, right?
Thanks for the reminder. Appreciate it.
It's something else you have to do, right?
Sure.
So therefore it gets done, because if it doesn't get done, they've got guns in jail and they can threaten you with it. Therefore you get it done. Right?
Sure.
Now, it doesn't have to be that desperate. You just have to learn how to create that same mental state. That's all I'm saying. See, some of us get I was so lazy, the mental state got created for me.
Right.
Now, you who are in a better position, you get to exercise diligence and patience and focus and faith to create that mental state intentionally. And here's the mental state. When your reality and what you desire are really close together, this gap right here in the middle, it's not that big. It's no big deal. I could take a vacation, but who really cares? It's not that big. I already had one of those. I don't need another one, do I? It's not that big of a deal. But because you're human, if you learn to expand your reality versus what it is that you desire. Now, see, here's the thing. Some of us, when we're talking about our reality is right here. The dreams are right here. And for some of us, what happens is we don't increase our dreams. Our reality just gets worse. And you know what happens is pain, and we figure it out and we come right back to where we were. Sometimes what happens is we just learn to increase what we want. Reality doesn't get worse and we just move forward. And then for a select few, those of you who I call the chosen, you are like me. What happens? Your reality gets worse and you learn to increase what you desire, i.e. your minimum standards, what you're willing to accept. And because you have been pulled back so far, you tend to overshoot because that's what happened. I thought I was going to be done because I would tell myself, oh my God, if I could just get to $10,000 of passive income a month, that'll be great. No one told me I could do that in 18 months. But I was in so much pain that I was just going to keep working until it happened. I didn't know when that was, and it didn't matter. See, it's not so much about learning something new. It's more about unlearning the things that have made you poor.
Yeah.
And some of those things are, you work from 8 to 5. No, you work till the job is done. No one likes to work until. I got that. But you work until the job is done. Our military gets that. They understand the mission isn't complete. That's when you rest. Once the mission is complete, your mission is probably not complete. But if you don't have a mission, if the reality and your desire are so close together that it already feels like you can reach out and touch it, then it doesn't matter. But that doesn't mean go hog wild and create something like, ooh, I want a Bugatti. Great, wonderful. But your body, your mind is not prepared for you to believe that you could have that yet. So you got to take it in baby steps and put yourself in situations to where the things that you think are great are the minimum standards of others, period. When I say something like, $10,000 of passive income a month, I know that that's very valuable and awesome and great. But I also know that if that happened today, I would be crying. Like, oh my God, I had the absolute worst month ever. You know what I'm saying? It'd be, woo, that would be bad for your boy right now. And it's like something really bad happened. So these are in that relative perspective, those are the things that make the difference. But ultimately, all you're saying to me is what you desire, you don't believe it. And if you did, or whatever you do believe is still too close to you to get you to do something that you wouldn't ordinarily do. That's why you believe you can save your way to retirement, because you don't understand the numbers. You actually believe you can, and you can't, but you believe you can, so you don't do anything about it. If you actually understood how inflation and taxes, especially together, work, all y'all would be like, oh my God, I'm podcast. What else can I do? You know, if you understood, we would be acting differently. And there are moments where humans, we understand that urgency, you know, because it's right in front of us. You know, you heard stories of moms lifting cars and people doing all kinds of crazy things to save their kids and this stuff. And you're just like, how did that happen? Well, they had a reason now, and it was urgent and it was clear. And we don't walk around with that clarity, and we walk around deceived. I'm okay. You know, you can turn on the news every day and see someone worse than you. And you know what effect that has? It tells you you're okay.
I think that's a great observation, because I think, comfort is sort of the enemy, right? I mean, it's great to be comfortable, but I mean, this idea that it sort of is prohibiting your ability to move forward is so true.
Not just prohibiting, it's absolutely crushing your desire. It's crushing you from doing the action because you hit on it earlier. Risk is a part of the equation, period. Failure is required. You know how you had a prerequisite in college? Failure is that prerequisite here. Yet between kindergarten through 12th grade, you know what you were taught? To get it right the first time without help, which does not happen in the real world. Life gives the test first, then the lesson. And most of us are not equipped to handle that. Now, those of you who are a musician, if you're an athlete, or an artist of some kind, you have better skill sets here because you've learned to fail. You fumbled the ball and you had to get up and go to the next play.
I love that he said musicians and creative types, because that nailed the both of us on the head. And we both failed
right?
multiple times. Yeah.
Yeah, you had to. That's how you made your masterpiece. You hit that wrong note. You thought you played the scale. Your teacher looked at you, nah, that wasn't it. Try again. And you tried again immediately. You didn't wait 2 weeks, then try again. Because that's not how you learn. We have never learned any other way. And now we have an addiction to looking good. And the problem is, because of that addiction, you can't learn and look good at the same time. So we don't learn. We literally choose to not learn because we would rather look good. I didn't have that luxury. I couldn't look good because I couldn't eat. And it wasn't like, oh, no one will know. No, we ain't ate. I got it. I mean, come on. I got to do something. And all I'm saying is that when you can take your desire and your reality and spread them apart enough, and especially once you empower that sucker with believing you can do it, not that it can be done, but you can do it. Man, what humans can achieve is it's my greatest joy. It's why I get up. You can probably hear that in my voice right now, because I want more people to have that. I was given it, and I don't want you to get it like I got it, but I want you to get it.
Yeah, nobody wants your gift, man. Nobody wants your gift.
But it's still there for you, regardless of how much you have, if you can just understand that failure is a part of it. And I got it. You went to school, you went to college, I've had doctors tell me that's not fair. I'm like, what do you mean that's not fair? I had to go through all this school and blah, 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 and you earn more money than me.
Sorry?
I don't know.
No, what do you want me to say, buddy?
I don't have a rebuttal. But maybe I failed more than you did. I mean, I don't know what to really say. But
I got 6 doctorates and from the School of Hard Knocks.
Yeah, exactly. And what's funny is that when I'm on stage, I often tell people I do have a PhD, public high school diploma. Yes. Perfect. Because, I've cried a lot of tears to figure this out.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, and it's not about formal education. It's not about any of that stuff, right? It's really all about that try, that effort, that, willingness to work. It's all this, grit that you're describing. It's all this, I don't think anywhere in your story did you say it was easy or that it came naturally. There's nothing in there that makes you think that this was an easy road to hoe.
Yeah, none of this is.
Well, and I think that's refreshing, right? Because I think in sort of our Instagram culture where you get on there and every 26-year-old's got a yacht and, it's pretty easy to get pretty down on yourself and start feeling like you're not doing what you should be doing because look at all the success everyone around me's got.
Well, then all you got to do is just become the 26-year-old that's renting the yacht to the person who wants to have the Instagram shoot, and you're good. You don't really care. You want more people to come. Do you see? It's a matter of understanding how did they get that shot? They probably, because trends, people were into using it and paying only for the use of the thing. So you just have to learn the definition of an asset, understand that you can make one right now, and then put it out there into the world and then just get better at that. Fail fast, fail forward, fail frequently. Success is on that other side. And it's okay. It's legit okay to fail. Just keep going. It's part of the process. But if you're not willing to do it, here's what I do say. Then stop saying you want the other thing. Because until you are, that's just flat torture. Like literally emotional, mental torture that you are putting yourself through saying, I'm going to have this or I want this, but there's no physical evidence in your world. No one could convict you of taking any actions. You would never be guilty of being a man or a woman of increase, as it says in the book, The Science of Getting Rich. You would never be guilty of that. And you need to be if you're asking for more. And unfortunately, we're getting to a point in the world where you won't have the luxury of asking, because in order to just do some of the most basic things, you won't have a choice. You just won't have a choice. It's like, if you want medical care, you better learn to own a business and get enough assets so that you can pay for it. And I hate to say it that way, but we have to be willing to take control and make it happen and provide value to each other. I know you were taught to go to a job fair. Don't be a job taker, be a job maker.
Yeah.
It's not that hard anymore.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. And I think it's also getting to the end of this. And honestly, I don't know how much better we can do. So I think we've landed on some great stuff. Hey, so Jay, Where can people find out more about what you're doing, your coaching, your podcast, all this kind of stuff? Where can people trace you down online?
Yes, please. You can stalk me at the following place. No. You mentioned the calculator earlier, so I want to make sure you know how to get to that. It's cashflowdiary.com/how many units, like all three words all together. Cashflowdiary.com/how many units. It's very simple. You put in your information in the calculator and it's going to tell you how many units you need in order to retire. Period. Ta-da. And now, because one of those things that's challenging, because when people say, ooh, I want to get into real estate, you ask them, well, how many units do you want? I don't know. I just want more. Great. It's kind of really hard to hit a goal when you don't know the game's over. It's like, when do I win? I don't know. Doesn't matter. I just want to be in real estate. You got to have these numbers so that you know what you're aiming for. You'll do better. And then the podcast is cashflowdiarypodcast.com. And then obviously just cashflowdiary.com. But at the end of the day, if you type Cashflow Diary in on almost any social media, you will find us. I just want you to be better. Just want you to understand your story's not over. And there's a way.
Awesome. So you held up a book earlier. What's the name of the book and how can we get it?
It's also named Cashflow Diary.
Oh, perfect. All right.
So it's it's absolutely available as well. And again, I think if you go to cashflowdiary.com/audible, like if you're not an Audible member, they'll give it to you for free because you get a 30-day trial and whatnot, but they'll give you that book for free as an audiobook. So yes.
Oh, nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Hey,
Well, cool.
actually, Ryan, I have one question if you have time.
Of course.
How does the conversation go with the landlord when you approach him and say, "Hey, I want to turn this into a short-term rental property"?
I was waiting for that.
Yeah.
I was waiting for that. That is actually what's really funny is that today I'm doing that very presentation is literally what I'm doing right after this is training and teaching people exactly that. Here's the thing. You and I don't do anything, nothing without a reason to do it that we believe. So here's my point. If you're bleeding, you go to the emergency room and the person behind the desk says they can help you. Because of everything else surrounding there, you go, cool, great, you can solve my problem. But you don't care if that doctor got a B, C, D, E, or F in biology. You can solve the problem. So I say that to take the focus, because when I start talking about the answer, we tend to put the focus on, well, but you don't know me, Jay. No, and he doesn't know you either, or she doesn't know you either. What they do know is that they have a problem. Their problem is vacancy, and you need to represent the ability to solve it. And if you can do that, they will gladly, happily allow you to rent their space. I routinely get today referrals from other existing landlords saying, hey, can you do for my friend what you did for me? Because their vacancy goes to 0. So what does that mean? That means you're being very transparent and you're letting them know, here's how this works. And in fact, here's the beginning of the script so that everybody knows. So for those of you, if you are riding the bike, washing your dishes, something of that nature, you're going to want to hit that little bookmark button right now. You ready? 1, 2, 3, hit it. Good. Great. The very first words out of my mouth for every person is as follows. Hi, my name is Jay. My company and I are looking to lease a number of properties in the area. Are you the right person to talk to about that? That's it. They're going to say yes or no. Now, I've used those words a lot, and so have my students, and it says everything you need to say right now. Because right now, at this stage of the relationship, all you need to know is my name, that my company and we're looking to lease a number of properties. That's all you got to really get done, right? And are you talking to the right person? Because if you're not talking to the right person, guess what? It don't matter at all. Okay. So what we then do is we have a conversation. But because that conversation at that moment is on the phone, the only goal is to get an appointment to see the building. And then once you're there, you answer the questions, because I know what's going on in the back of your head. There's 2 main questions. Hey, what happens when they say, is this Airbnb? Or when they say, well, what does your company do? Totally understood. And while we don't have time for it all today, here's what I will say. The answer to what does your company do is you describe vividly, specifically who it is that you want to serve, which is more than just saying, oh, well, business travelers. That is woefully inadequate in terms of description. Okay. But my point is, we teach you to describe that person in such a way that they go, oh, okay, got it. I understand. That's what your company does. Now, see, what my company does versus where do we and how do we acquire our customers? Those are 2 different things. So here's the number one thing most of you are doing, and this is why you're being told no. Because you keep saying things like, oh, I have an Airbnb business. And that's exactly where you're going wrong. 1, you actually don't have an Airbnb business. And 2, you're not realizing that ABC, CBS, and CNN, also known as constant negative news, got there first. And they have told and given your landlord a preconceived notion of what that means. And let's just say their job isn't to give them a good impression. And they did a good job. So that's why you're being told no. And then when it comes down to, hey, well, is this Airbnb? Once you understand that it's a marketplace and that you're talking to a landlord, there's an entire script, but what it ultimately comes down to is saying, or just asking them, have you ever gotten a tenant from Craigslist? Now, I know as a landlord that they have. Okay. I know they have. I just need you to admit it in this conversation. Okay. And then when they say yes, I just ask them, okay, cool. So when you got that tenant, what did you do next? Did you just let them sign a lease and move in? Well, no, God, I would never let them. I do this, I do that, blah, blah. I do all of these things. Great. We do too. In fact, we're about to make a very significant investment inside your property. And anyway, when you understand, or when they begin to understand that we're on the same side, and you run wholesale, I am retail. And that's ultimately the difference between the two business models. So it's like going to Costco versus going to Target. The landlord is Costco, the traditional landlord is Costco, we're Target. And between the Costco and Target, is there a markup? Yes. But does Costco care that Target makes money? No. Just that simple, right? And at the end of the day, that's when you understand that's what you're doing. You just have to learn how to explain it to people. A, so it makes sense. B, so that they don't feel like you're talking down to them. And C, such that they can go, oh, okay, not only does this make sense, how come no one's ever thought of this before? You have no idea how many times I hear that. And refer you to their friends, because inventory is the name of this game right now. And when you, like I said, $800 per month per bedroom, you start to do that math, it'll tweak you a little bit. And you're just like, did he just say I could get $800 per month and only work an hour a day? That's what I said. And that's what we do.
So I hate to keep prolonging this, but I have
Bro, it's fine. You're the only one who didn't know this was going to happen. I knew. I'm ready. It's what happens every time I open my mouth, that I'm used to it, bro. I really. What you want to know? What's funny is sometimes, like if I'm talking to a banker, or for a credit line, or all these other things, because they start asking some of the same questions. I can hear the disconnected robot, I'm at my job, just doing my job and filling in a form voice. And then all of a sudden, I can tell when it switches, because they'll say, hold on, you mean kind of like that Airbnb thing? Yes. You do that? Yes. And then they'll say, and then I can hear the doubt in their voice. I was like, okay, no problem. They'll go, and they're like, okay, just make sure you send in your bank statement, all that stuff. And then the next phone call, I get riddled with questions, because now they're like, okay, you got to tell me what you're doing. I looked at your website and I was just like, here we go again. It's all day, bro, every day. So
I appreciate you taking the time for us, and
it's fine, man. I'm used to it.
My question comes down to metrics.
Okay.
Is there a way that you can actually look at a market like Salt Lake?
Salt Lake's great, actually. Salt Lake, we have a lot of students out there. They are absolutely crushing it.
How do you look at the numbers and determine what an average, rental goes for? How you can, is there a way to get actual physical numbers and see what the market's doing?
Got it. Yeah. See, and that's where the what's the word? The real estate training that you have, it unfortunately fails you right now, because the technology is not there because you're trying to pull comparable sales. Yeah. And I understand, because that's what you've been taught. That's what you've been trained. But unfortunately, that data is not clean or exists. So there are companies out there that will say that, yeah, we can tell you, but I can unequivocally tell you that the technology is not there yet to be able to tell you how to do, or to be able to actually make that happen. That's really the problem here, is technology is behind, because and I'll give you a quick example for those of you who are like, no, that's not what they said. Let me tell you why. So, because most of that technology is just scraping the Airbnb public information or that's available. So let's pretend that right now you've got a unit that's available tonight and it's $150, right? So it goes right now and scrapes and says, okay, cool. The unit's open. That means it's vacant and it's $150. Then it waits 3 minutes. And in that 3-minute span, you get it. It scans again, but this time it shows that the day is blocked. They will often record that as, oh, that means it got booked, and it got booked at $150 a night. Well, what if in that 3-minute span, you your team informed you that you sprung a leak and the house is flooded. Well, you blocked the calendar, and what did you get exactly? You didn't even get you're not occupied, and you got no money. But they report a false positive in that case, and that's a problem.
Yeah, sure is.
What if you had a direct relationship with a government entity? Well, many government entities, you know what they do? They got a minimum. It's like we can only stay there if it's $200 a night. Well, it's blocked, but you actually got $200, not $150. So again, so you've got issues on both sides that the technology is not yet there. And there are even more reasons than just those two, but the technology is not yet there, to my knowledge, to actually give you accurate data so that you can actually pull comparable sales. The best you can hope for is and you've heard this on CNBC, you've heard of same sales year over year, same store growth year over year, same sales growth year over year, store to store. They can compare a store to itself. The challenge is you got to wait 12 months before you can do that. So that what that ultimately means is that the first 12 months is you are honestly putting forward your best guess and learning along the way with the understanding that there's a lot of opportunities that you're going to miss, because that's what's really going to happen. You're going to miss a lot of the upper opportunities because you just didn't know that the pot-bellied pigs of America come to your city every 3 weeks, and you just keep missing the extra revenue that they bring with them, because when is the last time you've even seen a pot-bellied pig? You know, because there's so much stuff like that that's happening in every area, and you just got to learn it. And that just takes time.
So last question, I promise.
No, it's not. It's okay.
I've thought about investing in a market that's more of like a tourist area during the summer.
Sure.
It's Chelan, Washington. It's a place I work at a lot. And the thought is if I invest in property there, I'll have a place to go to when I'm working there. With it being a seasonal market, do you think that you can feasibly generate enough income during the 6 months that tourists are there to cover the cost of the property?
Oh, not only feasibly, and not only think. Here's why I say that. I say that for a number of reasons. And then I'm going to leave you with one more point on what you just said. Extreme weather patterns exist in many different places. I look at our students, say, in a Phoenix or in anywhere in Arizona, because that place is just hot. And they have the inverse of the same thing of what you're saying. It gets too hot sometimes, and they have to just plan and budget. So it really comes down to, are you willing to hire a professional bookkeeper? Are you willing to follow the cash management plan that we lay out for you? If the answer to both of those questions is yes, then great. No problem. We can help you develop a pricing strategy that will allow you to profit over the 12 months, because you still have to pay all the bills. I got that. And make it work. So, and because sometimes it's not necessarily about the fact that you're going to close per se, as much as it's about you might have a different customer. For example, out here during certain months of the year, the majority of our customers come from the UAE and Asian countries. And then there's times where they come from Australia. And then there's times where they come from the UK. And it's my job to know that so that I can attract them here or to me for the right reasons at the right time. And that first 12 months, you don't know what you don't know. And I also want to say that as far as tourism goes, you don't need a place that is tourism specific, because we've identified 45 different use cases. Tourism is but one. Sure. And so for those of you who are not in a, sunshiny place or something of that nature, that doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means you have to have a different use case. You have to have a different understanding, because here's what I will tell you. I don't care what the weather is like. Everywhere, somebody's house, somewhere, some place today, someone's house flooded, and they called their insurance company, and their insurance company right now is trying to find that family a place to stay, which could also be your short-term rental, right?
Interesting.
So there are so many use cases. It's insane. So you don't have to pick tourism in order to do it. And lastly, specifically because you said what you said, if you want a nice place that you want to go for a vacation or something, fine, get you a nice place. But you leverage your business to pay for that nice place instead of trying to combine the two. Okay. Instead of trying to combine the two. So go build a portfolio that'll throw enough free cash flow so that it'll pay for the mortgage. And then now you don't have any other concerns constricting the place you actually want to go for your family for a vacation. That's a way better way of looking at it.
Well, thanks, Jay. We really appreciate your time. I learned a lot. It's definitely opened my eyes to a whole nother world of real estate investing. Last week we had someone talk about wholesaling property, so I'm learning a lot. It's been a good month for me.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. Now we just got to pull the trigger and do something.
I know, I'm working on it.
Cool.
Like I said, there are two tenets that I tell my students. I tell them the only time is now o'clock. Hear that again. Now o'clock. And move at the speed of instruction.
So
because those two things are things that you must learn to practice, because that hesitation will get crushed. If you are ever going to get to multiple 6 or 7 figures or more, that hesitation, it doesn't mean don't consider. It means you must learn how to get yourself into a position to be able to make these decisions way faster. That's all. And you got to learn yourself to do that. That's a lot of self-awareness and study and whatnot. But over time, that will die. That will have to in order to make it work.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
That's awesome. Yeah, Jay, thanks so much for your time. Thanks for going a little long and just getting into that with Mike. Really good advice for a lot of people that are interested in doing this. And like I said, sort of, more than once throughout this conversation, like I really appreciate your spirit and just sort of the drive and sort of that can-do attitude. I think that rubs off on people and really helps people move forward, especially in things like this that could be a little scary to the novice.
Oh, it's a lot of scary. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that, though. Yeah, it's a lot of scary. I am glad to be of service, and just let us know how we can help.
All right. Well, yeah. And once again, that's cashflowdiary.com. Our guest was Jay Massey. Thanks so much to everybody who tuned in on the live stream and who will eventually download this episode and be enlightened. If you've got questions for Jay, anything, hit him up at cashflowdiary.com and or relay them through us. Let us know what you thought of the show and what we can do to continue improving around here. So thanks again, Jay. Really appreciate your time. Have an awesome week. And We'll see everybody next time.
All right. Bye.